Welcome back to the Wrestling Wrantz Project. Everyone is doing well today. The wrestling world ticks on as WWE airs the season premiere of Raw tonight. For those of you listening to this on the release day, of course. We also got Halloween Havoc coming up on the October 28th down in NXT, and New Japan just crowned the 30th winner of the G1 Climax tournament. Unfortunately, James can't join us today, but I am happy to bring back a guest from the past. I believe we last spoke last year. This year has been a nightmare for time, as you guys know, but I'm very happy to welcome him back. He's the guy I love chatting New Japan with, and he's the creator of All Things Combat. So please help me welcome back Ben. How's it going today?
Doing good, bud. And I was like, it's not creator, but I do help kind of run everything there as we do it. So,
apologies about that.
Yes.
If you can you tell the audience about All Things Combat and what you guys cover?
Pretty much, we cover all combat sports. So we do a lot of MMA recently because that's been picking back up in a big way. We've kind of cut back on wrestling simply because of the fact that right now there's really two major promotions just going back and forth in the U.S. at least, and internationally they're starting to get back into the wrestling scene with everything starting to open back up a little bit. We cover a lot of boxing. I know there was a big fight this week. I know Lomachenko was in there, but I don't remember the other guy. I know Lomachenko won, and it was a big controversy. So I think Josh talked a little about that over there. But pretty much we just cover everything from boxing to WWE/pro wrestling in general to MMA.
Nice. Well, it sounds like, it's a great place for anybody who's into all things combat. UFC is huge, MMA sports, and then, like, as you said, those two companies right now are pretty much the only big ones left going right now in the United States. A lot of companies have been shut down due to the global bastard, as they say.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but everything seems to slowly be starting to get back to, for lack of a better term, a sort of normal.
Yeah. Tell me how it's affected you in your job and in journaling.
It's made it a lot harder to figure out stories. I really haven't wrote a lot of pro wrestling. I wrote about, what was it? WXW before everything shut down had their 16 karat gold tournament, which had guys like Walter. I think Ilya Dragunov was in that tournament as well this year.
Oh,
and
cool.
Then I kind of just went radio silent after that as far as pro wrestling goes. But then when New Japan announced, hey, we're coming back, they started with the New Japan Cup, talked about that, didn't pick the right winner. I think I also picked the same person I had who was my prediction to win the G1, winning the New Japan Cup, so that shows how unbiased I totally am. And then with the G1, I went back to breaking down predicting. I know Best of the Super Juniors and World Tag League is running side by side, and that starts like mid-November, and it runs through mid-December. So I'll be back for that. I want to get back into WWE, but that's a mess right now. It's just there's so much potential, and it's the stupid old man in charge that's ruining everything.
Well, I can say that there is a good tribal chief around now, so Roman Reigns as a heel champion is pretty good to watch, I must say. I'm enjoying it.
I've seen some stuff from that. I love it. I love that they're giving Jay a shot with Jimmy injured, but I fear what's going to happen to the Usos when Jimmy comes back.
That is a good point, and I've wondered the same thing, but the stuff with Roman Reigns and Jey Uso, with WWE, you just have to appreciate what you get sometimes, and because it doesn't matter at the end of the day, right? They're going to do whatever they want. So when a good story is happening, you just got to be, I guess, kind of thankful for it. It's like, oh, wow, Jey in this situation, it's new, it's different, it's fresh. I like it, so. And Paul Heyman, so.
It's such a good pairing. Everyone was like, Roman needs change. He goes away for, 4 or 5 months because how at risk he is with everything going on.
Yeah.
And he comes back, immediately turns heel, immediately with Paul Heyman. For the first time since the Shield debut, the internet loves Roman Reigns. And that is a crazy thing to think about in 2020.
Yeah, it is. And I also have to give credit where credit is due, because they've booked one hell of a WWE champion in Drew McIntyre. Like, whether the audience has been there or not, or small amounts of audience, it doesn't really matter. Drew McIntyre has been one hell of a WWE champion this year.
That's true. It's been kind of up and down-ish. Like, he's had good matches. him immediately being challenged by Big Show was really confusing to me. But
Yeah.
the stuff with Randy Orton's been amazing. My issue with Drew, and it's nothing against him, who really is a challenge for him? Who's the next challenger for McIntyre? Because after Hell in a Cell, and it's still a big if McIntyre wins, who's his next opponent?
I'm not sure, but with the draft now and having a kind of a fresh looking roster, who knows? But Drew carries himself really well as a champion. Like, I'm glad they're just letting him be the Drew McIntyre that he always was, because everybody always wanted him to be. Like, when he went over to WCPW and the indie scene, he was always a different guy and he was allowed to be pretty much himself. But when he was in WWE beforehand, he was like, 3MB and all these crazy things. And there was a time where Vince was like, he's the chosen one. And then nothing ever worked out, right? And then he went off, he came back, and now he's the whole package. So I'm just glad they're letting him be him.
Yeah, he went off to, I know he was in Evolve, I know he did WXW, he did ICW as well, and he was like champion across the world. I did a whole article about him, where he's been since his Rumble win, or since like before his Rumble win, but after his release. So kind of like a timeline of what has McIntyre been up to in the 6 years he was gone or something like that. And what's insane to think about, his first match on the indie scene, it was either his first or second, I don't remember exactly which. He won the Evolve title.
Oh, did he? Wow, I didn't know that.
Literally, like within the 3-month no compete clause window, he goes and wins a world championship, and I'm like, well, everybody else loves McIntyre, so this is cool.
So you write articles and getting back to the G1, you wrote what you thought would be the finals of the G1, and you came really, really close, man, with your boy Sonata. And to anybody who is hearing this and doesn't want spoilers for the G1, everything's being spoiled this episode, so turn it off now if you don't want to hear. But Kota Ibushi is your winner for a second time, and they put on a 35-minute banger of a match. Tell me about the finals, man. Tell me about Sonata. Tell me about your thoughts.
I hate Tomohiro Ishii for getting Jay White mathematically eliminated. I hate Sonata for losing the match. I hate Kota Ibushi for winning the match. I'm so mad, but honestly, for this being New Japan's first big thing back, this was what they needed, because, and I kind of thought about saying this in the article I wrote for breaking down and predicting, they've been pushing the same guys for years. We've seen Naito on top of the card. We've seen Okada as champion for, if I do the math right, about 5 total years. We've seen Tanahashi running the company since it feels like 2003. And now it's like, well, Tanahashi's getting older. I think he was the second or third oldest in this tournament behind Suzuki and maybe Tomohiro Ishii. So Tanahashi's getting up there in age. We've seen Okada on top for half a decade. It's time to get some new blood in there, some new faces. And yeah, Ibushi won the tournament last year. We haven't had a back-to-back winner since a long time ago. I want to say it was like, I know Inoki went back-to-back for 7 years, I think. It might have been Chono in like the early 90s.
Yeah,
the last back-to-back.
Yeah, I was looking up some previous winners and seeing how everything went, and there was it was interesting to see the people who won multiple years.
Oh yeah, because like I know Naito was trying to tie Tanahashi at 3 this year, which didn't happen. But this year was very interesting. There was only, now I gotta do math again, great. There were only 3 former G1 winners in the field. So there were 17 guys trying to make the finals for the first time, or to win the tournament for the first time. There was 4 guys who had been to the finals at least once, because Jay White got there last year. Yeah, that math works. Yeah, that's right. Okay. I'm trying to like do math in my head, and I'm like, it's too early for this, as I say at like 3 p.m.
It's always too early for math.
And nobody likes math ever.
The G1 was really interesting too this year, because I'm pretty sure Will Ospreay was a face at the beginning, and then he was a heel near the end.
Yeah, so what happened was he was beating a lot of the big guys. Ospreay's been putting on weight. You can see he's clearly not the 215-ish he was last year. He's more 225, 230-ish. I don't know if they even announce weight in New Japan when they come out, like you see in WWE week in and week out.
Yeah.
But he was beating a lot of these guys. He didn't have like the Fales, the Lance Archers that he had to beat last year. He had more open weight guys. Suzuki was in his block. Ishii was in his block. So, excuse me, he had a lot of winnable matches. The question marks came around the big three of the block. Can Ospreay beat Jay White, Kota Ibushi, or Kazuchika Okada? He beat Jay. He's beaten Ibushi before, but now Ibushi's got the 2-1 career lead over him. But it came down to Okada, and mathematically, going into the final night, Ospreay was alive. He was mathematically alive to win the block. He needed to win, have Kota Ibushi win, and he had to have Kota Ibushi lose. So Ibushi beating, oh God, who did Ibushi face? Ibushi beating Taichi eliminated Ospreay. But if Ibushi had lost to Taichi and Jay White had won over Ishii, if Taichi had beaten Ibushi, Ospreay would have won the block because he had the tiebreaker over Jay White.
Yeah.
So there was like a whole mathematical situation for that. But him beating Okada was a very interesting call because right now Okada's got nothing to lose. He doesn't have the IWGP Heavyweight Championship. He's got no titles. Yeah, he's the face of the company, but you can't just take that away with one loss. Okada lost twice in this tournament, so you can't really take that away at all. But you look at it, Ospreay had a guy coming back from excursion over in the UK with Rev Pro in Oka. So now Ospreay's kind of got a little protege, for lack of a better term. But I think this is somewhat of a build to Wrestle Kingdom for Okada because of the fact that now he lost to Ospreay, but over these next few months, maybe he gets a win in a tag match over Ospreay and wants that Rev Pro British Heavyweight Championship that Ospreay has.
Maybe. I mean, Kota and Will Ospreay will definitely put on another amazing match. Those two have fantastic chemistry together.
Which is crazy to think about because before, I think summer last year was the last time they actually tied up for the first time. And now this is only their second match ever. So I'm very excited to see where this feud goes. It's obvious also that Will Ospreay is no longer a part of Chaos.
Yeah. Yeah, and for somebody who is new to New Japan, and I kind of am, and I've been keeping up with certain things, and I've learned quite a lot over the time. But to anybody who's new out there and doesn't understand what we're talking about, what is Chaos? What are these stables that New Japan has, and who's in them?
So New Japan is big on having a lot of stables. Like you see stables like Los Ingobernables de Japón, you see Suzuki-gun, you see Chaos, and Bullet Club. So they've always thought that as a unit, people work better than individualized. And that's shown to be the case because Chaos has run the company pretty much since Okada came back. And even before that, when Nakamura was running the show there. But like Chaos has Okada, Ishii, Hiroki Goto, Yoshihashi, Toru Yano, Sho and Yo are there. And I think Master Wato, I'm not 100% sure on him. He's still a newer guy. We're probably going to learn a lot about him for Best of the Super Juniors here in about a month. Bullet Club. Bullet Club is a very interesting story, which I want to get to later. You have Jay White, Evil, Kenta, Tama Tonga, Tangaloa, Bad Luck Fale, and a few other guys that I'm probably forgetting. I know Yujiro Takahashi's in there as well. And you have other groups. LIJ is the smallest at 5, which is saying something for a stable when these other stables have 10 plus and you have a stable of 5 guys that everyone just loves, which is weird to think about. But stables have always been a big thing for New Japan, and with Ospreay attacking Okada, it's pretty clear that he's no longer a part of Chaos.
There's a lot of stables. Like I'm just like even on the results, like just looking at Bullet Club, Suzuki-gun, it's Taguchi Japan, and like damn, like there's a lot of stables.
And Taguchi Japan's a weird one because it's like if you're not in a stable, technically you qualify under the Taguchi Japan banner, but you're never officially a member of Taguchi Japan unless your name is Ryusuke Taguchi.
I do think it's fascinating that in Chaos, and correct me if I'm wrong, but was it reformed with the leader being Shinsuke Nakamura from WWE?
It was formed with Shinsuke as like the leader because at the time he was the kind of picturesque guy to be the champion. He had a background in MMA. He's done a lot of things for New Japan, especially with him being the most recognizable IWGP Intercontinental Champion, I'd say, of all time. But he was never able to really grab the reins as heavyweight champion, which was something Okada did. So Okada just kind of took over from Nakamura, but Nakamura didn't really put up much of a fight for leadership, and he just stayed with the stable until he departed for WWE.
Okay, all right. I mean, Shinsuke Nakamura, they drop his name a lot when you're watching New Japan, and the fact that they do that with a lot of stars who have left New Japan or were in New Japan for a certain amount of time, and then they'll chalk back to certain names. I really appreciate that, especially as somebody who is somewhat new to New Japan. Is you like to hear that stuff. Of course, you can go online, you can research it, you can look it up for days on Google, but when a commentary team is talking to you and they're like, hey, this person from, they don't mention their promotion, but they mention all the people that have left New Japan that have done this, 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 and this. Like, they still talk about Prince Devitt at times, or they'll mention they've mentioned AJ Styles here and there, or they've mentioned this and that. So I like when they cater back to that, because it's like, oh, okay, because I had no idea about Shinsuke Nakamura for the longest time. I knew he came from New Japan, but I didn't know, for instance, when Ibushi always goes for his move, right? I really like that when they always chalk back to that.
Oh, yeah, and like, for people who don't know, first off, Prince Devitt is Finn Balor from NXT now, and the NXT champion. But you look at it, there's a lot of former WWE champions even that wrestled in New Japan. You mentioned AJ Styles. You also have Kurt Angle and Brock Lesnar who wrestled over in New Japan. And the Brock situation is always a weird one to talk about, and that's a whole story for another day. But you have, I know Shelton Benjamin was over there. He was a part of Suzuki-gun for a little bit. MVP was over there. Kushida in NXT, one of the best junior heavyweights of all time. He was a major staple.
I knew those guys were over there, except Shelton. I didn't know that about him. That's pretty crazy. I didn't know he was part of Suzuki-gun.
Yeah, he had that weird bit in the mid 2010s where he was just gone from WWE. He got released, and a lot of people were like, "Oh, where'd he go?" And then everyone was like, "Oh, there he is. He's in Japan. That's cool."
One thing I also appreciate about New Japan is before they defend the IWGP Heavyweight Championship, they always show everybody from the past. Like all the people who have had the title, and I absolutely love that. I don't care what your beef is with the company, unless you've done something kind of absolutely insane, like, Chris Benoit, for example. You don't want to have him up there. But, I love shouting back to everybody from the past, because you see that long list of, like, all of the people who have started this long legacy of that beautiful title. Oh my goodness, the IWGP title is one of my favorite titles out there. It's absolutely gorgeous. That's a title I want on my wall. I'll just put that out there. But
that makes two of us.
What's that?
That makes two of us, because I want that one so bad.
Yeah, that the AEW one, that's gorgeous too. But the thing I wish WWE would do, and even NXT maybe, would just that old shout back to all of those past people with the title. I think that would be really nice. It doesn't have to have a picture of them, but just the names, and just to make that championship feel even more important.
Well, to make the NXT title feel more waste almost every single NXT talent that gets called up, but that's beside the point.
That's another topic.
Well, also with that whole history of the IWGP Heavyweight title, and like looking back to the past champions, you don't see some names up there that were kind of helpful during the years. I know Ric Flair, when he was in WCW and they had the relationship with New Japan, he was a big star over there. It was an interesting fact that a lot of people don't know. If you look at every winner of the G1 Climax, and you go back to when it was called like the World League or whatever the old name was, 4 different countries have won the G1 Climax. Kenny Omega's the only Canadian to win it. I'm trying to remember every single. There's a bunch of guys from Japan, so obviously. I mean, Inoki won the thing 10 times, so you're going to have a lot of winners from Japan.
Yeah.
And the other two countries that have won it once, at least, the United States and France. The only two people who that could be, the French one's kind of Andre the Giant. Andre's won the G1 Climax before.
Cool.
And the other one from the U.S., this was when he was still with WWE, I believe, or he was not the big star there yet. Hulk Hogan.
Wow.
So you have a history of legends winning this tournament, and you have the callback to the past with the former IWGP Heavyweight Champions. But a lot of this tournament kind of felt like looking towards the future, at least to me. Like you're looking to the future, like stars like Will Ospreay doing things against heavyweights now. You have Shingo, who beat Kota Ibushi in block action, and he's a younger guy. You have Jeff Cobb finishing with 8 points and technically being the highest placing guy who was mathematically eliminated early in the tournament. And then in B block, outside of Tetsuya Naito, Kenta, and Evil, none of those guys were really experienced in the main event scene. So you have the building towards the future, which I think New Japan is now realizing they have to do so they can keep the history of the IWGP Heavyweight Championship alive.
Well, honestly, with Sonata not winning this year and coming in second, I honestly think that he'll win next year. Because I mean, as you say, we're pushing towards the future now, right? So I would imagine with Kota Ibushi winning twice in a row, I did not expect him to win a second time in a row. I didn't expect him to win at all. Like I told you, Will Ospreay was my guest this year, and he came friggin' close. But Kota Ibushi, yeah, I did not see that winning a second year in a row. But I mean, he didn't win against Okada, did he? So I guess now he has a second try at the title.
No, he beat Okada. Naito actually went to the tournament as champion, so he has the title shot against Naito at Wrestle Kingdom.
Yeah. I mean, last year's Wrestle Kingdom, it was Kota Ibushi didn't beat.
Yeah.
Yeah, he didn't
get revenge over Okada in this tournament because he beat Okada in block action, but he lost to Jay. Yeah. And Jay's now challenging for the championship shot at Wrestle Kingdom at the next big event for New Japan, Power Struggle.
Yes, Power Struggle's coming up, what, next month?
I'm going to take a stab in the dark and say it's late this month, maybe?
Okay. And at the same time, too, Wrestle Kingdom announced again that it's going to be 2 days this year again. Or next year.
Which makes me very curious as to why. And I mentioned this before we started. I have a nice little thing I thought about before this. This is now kind of a road to WrestleMania-esque thing to make comparisons for people. Because Ibushi essentially won the New Japan version of the Royal Rumble. He beat 19 other stars from New Japan to get the title shot, and now people want it. We haven't seen people challenge for a Royal Rumble shot since, and you might not know if this is correct or not, John Cena won in 2008, and then Orton beat him at No Way Out to make that triple threat at WrestleMania 24 with Cena, Orton, Triple H. So Ibushi has a lot more hurdles than a Rumble winner, but he essentially won their version of the Royal Rumble, and now he's got to defend that to Wrestle Kingdom.
Honestly, I wish many different companies would get the G1 or some sort of form of it because I absolutely love it. I think it's so elegant.
Just imagine a WWE or AEW type G1, 20 guys in 2 blocks just beating the ever-loving crap out of each other just for a shot at the title, and you have the chance to lose that shot.
I don't mean to crap all over WWE, and I'm sure they could put on a great performance, but I think if you're comparing, if AEW or WWE decided to do some sort of tournament like the G1, I think AEW would smash it. I honestly do, and I don't mean to, just because they always let the wrestlers go, and I think again they haven't done any crazy disqualifications, and WWE's tossing out DQs like it's going out of style. So I think it would be a more enjoyable tournament unless WWE turned around and was like, hey, in this match, if you're facing each other, you're going to beat the living hell out of each other. These matches are going to go on for at least minimal 10 to 15 minutes. I mean, of course, you'll have someone funny like Toru Yano, for example, someone like him, which, by the way, I can't stand Toru Yano. I don't care. I know he's a comedy character, but I can't stand him. Let me just put that out there.
like to me, and I know this guy is pretty much buried in the wrestling world, and he's probably got no shot at coming back, but he's a lot like Joey Ryan was when he was a thing. Like, I don't like Joey Ryan. I don't like Toru Yano in the ring. I get that people like them. That's cool, and I don't blame them at all. It just doesn't work for me.
Yeah, it doesn't. Well, it would work for me if maybe I was watching a show like Raw, like, you know, or in June, or like some, you know, weekly 2-hour wrestling program that New Japan has. But in a tournament where people are beating the living holy hell of each other, there's no time for jokes. Like, I just want to see you guys freaking go at it. I mean, obviously, you know, joke and smile at each other when you're, you know, one-upping each other. That's fantastic. Like Minoru Suzuki, for example, and Kota Ibushi, loved it. Loved it. That was my favorite match of the card. Oh, that was it. I love Suzuki. He's 52. I've missed a lot of his career, and I know he's probably going to be gone soon, but man, do I love watching him go.
I don't care if you're a fan of Suzuki. If you're looking at him and he smiles and laughs at you, you run like hell and get out of the way.
Yep.
Do not walk back towards that man, ever.
Yeah, like I stumbled upon him last year when I entered the G1. Or, yes, I entered the G1 and won it. Like that. Yeah, that's what happened to me last year. No. I entered it. Well, I watched it for the very first time ever, and I was telling you, I think maybe even last year on a podcast, that I thought Minoru Suzuki was awesome. I was telling you how Lance Archer was one of my favorites that out of it too, and now I'm a big fan of his in AEW. So that all worked. That all came full circle. But yeah, Minoru Suzuki though, man, when he laughs and he's facing, I love watching him go though. I get such a kick out of his character. He makes me laugh.
Kevin Kelly calls him Satan in the ring for a reason.
Oh, that's another one. Is it Kelly? Yeah, Kelly, the commentator.
Now he might be the best play-by-play guy.
I'm so sorry to Kelly if he accidentally hears this at some point in the future.
It's tough to talk about like the play-by-play guys because Michael Cole's kind of run that thing into the ground over these past few years, but like he's still got moments. I still remember the Seth Rollins WrestleMania 31 with him just yelling Seth Rollins with the heist of the century, and that might be his career highlight at this point.
Yeah, Michael Cole. I mean, they all bug me on some level. I mean, Corey Graves, I think, bugs me the most, but for the most part, and there are certain things, like if they just commentate the match, it's great. I don't mind hearing Kelly at all. I think he's great. But what bothers me is that when it's like Destino and he holds the O too long, I just want to mute my television. I can't stand it. It gives me a headache. Like I don't want to hear it. Like it makes me want to turn off the program. So if your commentator, and this, you know what, everybody could love that part too, but if the commentator is making me want to mute my television or turn off the program and not hearing it, that's not a good thing. So, but that's just my opinion. It's one person's opinion. And what am I talking about? I'm just a random person. So what do I know? What do I know?
Everyone's got little quirks that they don't like, and that's understandable. But I look at it with New Japan. They try and have Kevin Kelly fill you in as much of the story as possible, yes, and have Rocky Romero kind of fill in the little details, like the nuance of stuff, which I really like for New Japan. And I don't know if they really have it in AEW, and it's not that I've told you this before. I don't hate AEW. I've just been so busy I haven't had time to fit watching it into my schedule. I haven't watched WWE a lot, but I just kind of keep my ear down to the ground, so I kind of know what's going on. But you look at it, the commentators are just there trying to do their job, and I give them 100% credit. But also, looking at like B Block, as far as I know, because I didn't watch the first 3 nights of B Block. But I did put on Twitter when I saw Sonata was 0-3. I'm like, I tweeted it, I think exactly. I haven't been able to watch the G1 Climax, but I will say this. Sonata deserves better. And then he rips off every other win.
New Japan is one of those companies that book long time ahead, right?
Yeah, if I remember right, and this is spoilers for anyone who hasn't been keeping up, the plan for Evil to turn on Naito was planned, I think, Wrestle Kingdom before last.
Wow.
Like, they were 2 years ahead, essentially.
Yeah, so I mean, to have that, to put that doubt in your mind with Sonata right at the beginning of the company, they had already planned for that, man. They're all like, I'm gonna find this Ben dude, and I'm just gonna make him doubt. I'm gonna play with his heartstrings.
I mean, you look at it too, and I put this one out to one of my friends. Sonata, for a little while, he was like the focal point of new for Lij, where last Wrestle Kingdom he dropped the ball. Everybody else won titles. Bushi, Evil, and Shingo were never six-man champions. Hiromu won the junior heavyweight title. Naito won both the IC and heavyweight title, and Sonata failed to beat ZSJ for the Rev Pro title. He was the one who didn't get the Lij clean sweep. He was the one who messed that up. So everyone's like, oh, Sonata's the weakest link. And also for a while there was news he was freelancing and he might not be with the company for a lot longer. But telling him probably we have plans for you to be in the G1 finals at least, that had to give him some hope and just give it a little time. And then he gets there. And now all the fans are like, he's got a shot. But my issue with him going from 0-3 to win the block, it's the same story as Jay White last year. Jay White started 0-3, won the rest of his matches, and got to the finals against Ibushi and lost. So it's kind of a rinse and repeat, but it's a new guy getting there, and it's a new star, which is something that I want to see them do more often.
Absolutely, and I mean, I'm pretty sure Sonata's going to have that title at some time soon, because I think I told you it was last year that I became a big fan of Sonata's over the G1. I think it was him and Lance Archer were the two kind of breakout people that I liked. Because, I mean, not breakout in New Japan, I mean just breakout in me, because I've never really watched them go. I've only seen, before last year's G1, it was just like pay-per-view here, pay-per-view there, you got to watch this match. But now I said last year that I was going to watch the G1 this year as well. And for a while, we didn't think we were going to get one because of the whole pandemic nonsense. But at least we did get one. And it was really, really good. And I'm glad I tuned into it.
I think technically we got it a little earlier than we were going to because it was going to be pushed back in general because of the Olympics. But I think we might have gotten it like a month early, technically.
Well, that's pretty cool. I mean, I was thinking it would have been over the summer, but I mean, yeah, with the Olympics and pandemic.
Yeah, because the Olympics were going to use a lot of the same venues that they were going to use. Like Ryogoku Sumo Hall was probably going to be used for like amateur wrestling. They're probably going to use Korakuen for like gymnastics or something. Tokyo Dome was probably going to be for basketball. So a lot of the venues that New Japan frequents would probably have been booked up through the Olympics at least, and that would have probably run until mid-August. So then you probably want to give them a little time to get things back into order. So you would have been looking at maybe a September start. So we might have got it right on time, actually.
Yeah, could have. Now, I just briefly switching back to commentary, and I just want to say one thing about commentary is that despite the annoyances that I hear on every commentary, and I'm sure if I showed up on commentary somewhere, people would just give me a hard time. Oh, who's that person? God, I can't stand him, blah, blah, blah. But I will shout out to what you said earlier, to the amount of background that Kelly and Rocky Romero give you. I really, really enjoy that. Because honestly, without the commentary without them telling me the background of all this stuff, I would have been so lost. So I can't sit here and crap on all of it. I just that Rainmaker Destino kind of thing that he has long parts on drives me absolutely nuts. But I'm glad that you mentioned Shingo, because he was one of the people that I wanted to bring up, the Dragon, Shingo Takagi. He is, I think, my favorite this year. I think he became one of my favorites, like Lance Archer last year. I can't wait to see more Shingo Takagi.
Right now, like with the New Japan scene, it's a little tough to figure out how far someone's going to go because Naito has both the heavyweight and intercontinental title. I'm going to touch on that in a minute because I do have a theory. It's half baked at this point because I don't know anything with New Japan ever. So it's just like a theory I've kind of put together through my head. But Shingo's right now a lot like the Suzukis, the Ishiis, even the Gotos to an extent. He's stuck in the open weight division. And don't get me wrong, I love the open weight division. That's pretty much the division where you don't care about flashing moves. You don't care about your Destinos, Rainmakers. You just beat the living hell out of everybody and hope to hell they don't do worse to you. So Shingo's kind of stuck in there right now. Moxley's kind of in a weird spot with the U.S. title. I know Kenta has a shot at it because he won New Japan Cup USA, which is a little small 8-man tournament they did on the weekly show that they've been starting in America at least. And so Kenta could maybe bring it back to Japan because I'm pretty sure that Moxley doesn't want to travel all the way to Japan just to drop the title. So Kenta could bring the U.S. title back, and that would open up another mid-card-esque scene. But Shingo's going to be in that mid-card scene soon. And that's my concern with LIJ and possibly its lifespan, because you're going to have 3 guys in the heavyweight championship scene in Evil, Sonata, and Shingo. So seeing something like that, but Shingo should be poised for some big push here soon. Did he beat Suzuki on the final night?
Final night. Now I'm trying to remember yesterday because I watched everything.
Not in the tag match, in the final night of A Block. So like 2 nights ago.
The A Block? Yeah.
Yeah, the A Block.
Yeah. His last match on night 17, he beat Minoru Suzuki.
So he does have a never openweight title shot coming his way, which would be interesting. Do you save that match for Wrestle Kingdom?
Could. I mean, there'd be more of a crowd there and more of a reaction.
There would be, and it would give Shingo a big moment. It's just tough because you have the champion of the company holding 2 titles, and you're like, well, just drop the other one.
Yeah, I mean, it's confusing of what they're going to do, and that's actually one thing I wanted to bring up with you, and I'm glad that you brought it up, was the U.S. title picture of New Japan, because a lot of people don't know that Jon Moxley is the current IWGP U.S. Heavyweight Champion.
Well, it was weird because at one point he couldn't travel over to Japan because of a tsunami going on, so he was stripped of the title. So yeah. Lance Archer beat Juice Robinson for it. And then at Wrestle Kingdom last year, Moxley beat Archer for it, and then beat Juice the second night, and he defended against Suzuki at New Beginnings, and I don't think we've seen Moxley since, in New Japan at least. So I say, and I have nothing against Moxley. I enjoy everything he's done, and I don't know if I'm going to do top 10 men's wrestlers of the year this year, simply because I've been so out of the loop. He's number 1 by a mile. The close seconds are McIntyre and Reigns, but Moxley's number 1, no question about it. But he has to drop the title to Kenta just to get it back into Japan and let us see it and have another title scene to worry about while Naito has 2 titles.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised because I know New Japan is pretty strict. I've heard this, and I maybe you can confirm it with me, but I've heard that they're pretty strict on people being unable to defend their titles, like with Jon Moxley with the whole tsunami thing, like we just spoke about. He was unable to get to Japan to defend that title, so Japan was like, okay, we have to strip you. Lance Archer beats Juice Robinson, and then you get the U.S. title. That was good too. I really enjoyed that. But then giving it back to him, and then he's unable to defend it again. But this time it was something even more beyond his control with the whole pandemic. Everybody was affected. So maybe they're being more lenient, but are they strict with their titles in that sense?
Usually they really are. I remember at one point during the whole pandemic going on, Naito briefly mentioned in either an interview or something else, he would be willing to go to another promotion to defend it, to just have New Japan get off of his back about it. So they're still strict, but I think right now, with how crazy 2020 has been, they're like, we're going to give you guys more of a leash. We're not going to strip you due to everything going on. But at the same time, they have to get that title back to Japan. And I like Moxley in AEW a lot more than Moxley in Japan. I think part of it's the ring gear, because I don't like Moxley in shorts. But it just doesn't work for him being the U.S. champion over there. He would have to be in the never openweight scene first, because of the fact he would put on great matches with everybody there. He did for the whole G1 last year when he was in the openweight gauntlet block, for lack of a better term. Because he had like Ishii. I know Juice was over in that block. Shingo was in that block. So you had guys who were in that openweight division just battling Moxley, and they looked great during it. So he would work very well in the openweight scene. But him being U.S. champion is an issue because he's stuck in the U.S. and with the travel restrictions, it's tough to get out of the U.S. right now.
I mean, for good reason though. Like, it's not definitely something being petty, but it's like I agree. Like, that title has to get back to Japan. I mean, hopefully they can find an interesting way to get Jon Moxley to defend it. Like, I honestly, if New Japan and maybe AEW can come to some sort of agreement. I mean, we've seen the former champion on Dark before, way back when Dark started. So I mean, on Dark they could just defend it on YouTube.
Yeah, there are ideas for it, and I have heard New Japan wants to have a relationship with AEW. I kind of want it to be like the Rev Pro situation where we don't see them every single week. We see them once in a while. Maybe they'll hear like Ospreay won the Rev Pro British Heavyweight title. ZSJ has a long history with the Rev Pro British Heavyweight. Ishii's won it. Suzuki's had it. So like stuff like that. Like, don't have them take away the main title from AEW. Maybe the TNT Championship once here or there. But also let the AEW guys come over and compete in some of the tournaments. Like, imagine Trent being in Best of the Super Juniors. Imagine Chucky T, Penta, Phoenix, all working with guys from New Japan.
Yeah, that would be insane. Like, I've heard the rumors about that magical door that people keep talking about. That if it opens between AEW and New Japan, shit's gonna be crazy. But I mean, there's a good relationship there from what I've heard. And sometimes I think there's sometimes in contracts where like they can still work with New Japan here and there. Like Moxley, for example, he can still work with New Japan being the U.S. title, but also be working with AEW and being the world title. So I'm glad there's a good relationship there, and I'm glad AEW has been open with working with other companies like NWA, for example. It was really cool seeing Thunder Rosa pop up on AEW.
Like, I know this is a little deviating off. AEW has to address that women's division because there is no momentum behind it at all right now. It's just dead in the water, and it needs help. Thunder Rosa is part of the help, but they need a little more than just one person to spark life into that. And I like what a lot of them have been doing. I like Anna Jay. I love Hikaru Shida. Thunder Rosa is great, but you just need help there so bad.
I agree. I mean, I defended it as long as I could. I really, really did. And people came on the podcast within a few months of AEW. They were like, women's division crap. And I'm like, yeah, you're not wrong, but, have patience. You're not wrong, but patience. But after a year, AEW has now officially been a year on TV, and yep, their women's division, they need to tackle it. They need to treat it like it's important, because I mean, we have some cool characters starting to come out of it, like DMD, Britt Baker, and Hikaru Shida, and we have Chris Statlander. She just appeared back on BTE for the first time today, for those who don't know, so that was pretty cool. But yeah, we have to. Nyla Rose is great too, but we have to build that division up. We have to make it important. We have to go, oh my God, tonight, what's happening on AEW Dynamite, for example, tonight? And someone's like, oh, they're defending the women's title, and it's going to be awesome because so-and-so is defending it. Oh, cool. I can't wait to hear it. Like, we need that genuine, organic reaction to the women's division. And
exactly.
They need to
look at WWE's women's division. It's been great for the past 2 years. Heel Bayley, which I was very skeptical about at first, has been one of my favorite things this past year in pro wrestling. You have Sasha Banks, who's been phenomenal ever since Becky left due to pregnancy. Asuka's been tearing it up. NXT is on another level for women's division. When you have Rhea Ripley, Io Shirai, Candice LeRae, Shotzi Blackheart, and so many others, Dakota Kai, you have great talent there, and AEW has that. You've got to mold it and build it. It's something I want to see in New Japan, and they have had strict issues with. Or not issues, rules with men's and women's promotions. Like, there's an equal women's promotion for the men's promotion. But and Bushi Road, who I believe is like the television contract owners for New Japan, don't quote me on that, but I believe that's what it is. They bought Stardom, I think, late last year. So part of me is like, when are we getting an IWGP Women's Championship?
They bought Stardom. I did not know that.
Yeah, Bushi Road did. I want to say it was late last year, like November, December, maybe.
Wouldn't a G1 with women would be amazing?
You know how much I want WWE to do that with their talent? That more than anything. WWE took the top 5 in the women's 100 that just came out from PWI. So you have the talent there. I think they got 7 of the top 10 spots. The talent's there to have a great tournament. Just to quote Shia LaBeouf, just do it.
I think Nike might have had that one first.
Nobody knows Shia LaBeouf better than me.
Yeah, it's true. That's good. So we're at the end of the podcast, but before we wrap things up, can you tell everybody in your own opinion this year, because you watched some of the G1, right? It's difficult to watch every episode, but you watched some of it.
Yes, I did.
All right. So out of all the people that were in the tournament this year, I'm taking away Shingo Takagi this year. Last year, I took away Lance Archer, as I was saying. I thought he was incredible. I couldn't wait to see more of him. And this year I'm taking away Shingo Takagi. But who in this year's G1 is the wrestler that you're taking away this year that you want to see more of? Someone that you didn't expect, someone that just grabbed your attention, someone that you're like, wow, they did really good in this G1.
There's 2. And I'm kind of going to talk a little bit about the Wrestle Kingdom 2-day things as well. Mm-hmm. The 2-day Wrestle Kingdom first. With Sonata getting to the finals, there's actually a video where he had the one roll up where he does the back bridge and just pushes up. Somebody actually timed it. Ibushi kicked out at 2.98, which is very damn impressive.
Yep.
But also with the 2-day Wrestle Kingdom, I want people to think back to the last stretch Sonata had. He had to beat Naito to stay alive. He did that. He had to beat Juice Robinson. It's a pretty obvious win there. Sorry, Juice, but it's a pretty obvious win. And then night 16, he had to face Hiroshi Tanahashi, the ace of the company, against a guy who has never had more than 8 points in the G1, and he was at 8 points then. He beat Tanahashi in 27 or 28 minutes, something like that. And then the last night, he had to beat Evil to win the block. And this was his tag team partner for years. Those two know each other better than anybody else in the block. He beat him in 27 minutes and then goes out and wrestles a 35-minute Dave Meltzer 7-star classic. Sonata losing the tournament does not mean this is the end. With Wrestle Kingdom at 2 nights, he could face Naito night 1, but not for the heavyweight title. And this is how you get the IWGP Intercontinental Championship off of Naito. Sonata beats him at Wrestle Kingdom on night 1 for the IWGP Intercontinental Championship. And Sonata's finally a champion in New Japan. That was just a small thing I wanted to kind of wrap up, and I was like, this is a great half-baked theory I have, and it's probably not going to happen, but I want it so bad.
That sounds exciting, man, and I mean, it could happen. If I were a betting man, and not too often I am, but if I were a betting man, by at least next year, I think Sonata will have that IWGP Heavyweight Championship. At some point by the end of next year at the latest.
I want it. I don't know if they're going to pull the trigger sooner or later. He just has to have a championship of some kind. And I'm not taking away Sonata as like the guy who I want to see more from in this tournament. You know how big of a fan I am of his and how big of a fan I am of LIJ in general. I'm very excited for the Best of Super Juniors, especially with Hiromu, Ishimori, Phantasmo, and Bushi. Some combination of those 4 are going to end up in the same block. And you're going to have a big Bullet Club versus LIJ story. But the 2 guys I'm like taking away from this tournament, both are from A block. One's Taichi. We've known how good Taichi is for a little while. Everyone hates Taichi, but okay, most people hate Taichi. I've always enjoyed I've enjoyed his stuff. I don't know if he's ever going to advance past the openweight division, but what stuck out to me, he was maybe the most consistent guy. He lost to the guys you expected. He beat the guys you expected. You didn't see anything out of the ordinary from him, but there was one toss-up match that you really thought was going to go one way. It was, I believe, midway-ish or early in the tournament against his stable leader in Suzuki. I thought Suzuki was going to win that, and that would be plain and simple. Taichi beat Suzuki, which you don't often see stable leaders lose to guys in their stable. And here I am a couple years ago thinking, oh, once Suzuki does step away from Suzuki-gun, as you mentioned, he's 52. He doesn't look like he's missed a step in the ring, but he's older. I thought Sabre Jr. was going to take over Suzuki-gun and make it Sabre-gun. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if Taichi's the one to take it over. And that's saying something, because Sabre looked good in this tournament. This was kind of a return to form for Sabre, but Taichi just looked better, I think. And they're both IWGP Heavyweight Tag Team Champions. So we'll see what happens with that, because I'm curious what Taichi does next, especially in New Japan.
Taichi is definitely a good shout for all those kicks that him and Kota Ibushi went through.
They're just kicking machines. That's all they know how to do.
All the swearing included, they literally kick the shit out of each other. Like, God, like, damn, like that match, that's the kicks. I think it was over 150 kicks split between them or something like that. Some
Jeez.
sort of, yeah, it was absolutely nuts. Just the way, like, you could tell those shots were hurting. Like, oh man, like, I was like, oh my God, my legs, like, just kept going. I was like, oh my, you guys you're gonna feel that tomorrow.
Ibushi was lucky he had the day off for B-Block Finals.
Yeah. Well, Taichi is definitely a good shout, because I mean, a lot of people don't like him, but I've liked him since I started watching him. I think I mentioned that before too. He cracks me up coming up with that little mic and singing his song. Oh Christ, it cracks me right up.
It's true. He's very underrated, I think, and people need to start realizing that he's actually really good in the ring.
Yeah, he is. So it's apologies. It's Taichi and your second one?
This one might surprise some people, because I don't know how many people read my tweets sometimes. Jeff Cobb. For a little while, I had issues with him because of the fact that somebody asked, what's Jeff Cobb's contract situation? And I was responding to some random person on Twitter. I'm like, I think he signed with Ring of Honor. That's what it says on the internet. Jeff Cobb responded. He's like, no, you're stupid. Pretty much plain and simple. And I was like, Jeff, really, man? But this whole tournament, he's looked really, really good. I've enjoyed his stuff. And he was another one of those guys that was very consistent. He didn't win the matches you didn't think he was going to win. Yeah, the one night with Ospreay was going to be a toss-up, like it was back at G1 Special at Madison Square Garden a couple years ago during WrestleMania weekend. But also the fact that he beat Jay White. And with everything going on in Bullet Club, to say that he beat Jay White is a big thing, because this is a guy who had never been past the openweight division. He's wrestled, I believe now, 18 G1 matches. He doesn't have an exclusive contract with New Japan, yet he beat one of their top stars. That speaks volumes to me on how high New Japan is on Jeff Cobb. And also the fact that with everything going on in Bullet Club, with who's the real leader, is it Evil, is it Jay White, is it possibly Kenta? With everything going on in that, Bullet Club didn't raise a finger when Jeff Cobb beat Jay White. They were like, oh, this just happened, it's fine. So I'm curious what that means for Jay White, but Jeff Cobb competing against these big names and actually beating both White and Ospreay, that's a huge shout. I want to see him do more in New Japan, especially if they do get that title off of Moxley with Kenta. Maybe we see Jeff Cobb as the next IWGP US champion.
Maybe, and that is a fantastic place to leave it. I'm going to leave it right there. Leave the audience wondering.
That sounds good to me. Leave them wanting more.
Absolutely. Can you put out your social media there?
Yeah, so if you guys want to follow me on Twitter, it is at Churro Soldier. For a while, it was Solidar, because I didn't know I spelled soldier, and I was 13 and stingy to change it until I was about 23 years old. But I've changed it. It's Churro Soldier. You can find me there. I write stuff for All Things Combat, and they are All Things Combat on Twitter. They're also on Facebook under the same name. But also, I write stuff for other small websites, mostly video game stuff, a couple sports things here or there. Just follow my socials. You'll see the links to all that. And I hope you guys enjoy seeing what I write and listening to this and me ramble for New Japan for about, 50, 55 minutes.
Yeah, that's about it. And I'm glad you shared that, man. And you guys definitely go check his material out. You can find all of our other social medias at SoundCloud under Lotus Moon Productions, Facebook under Lotus Moon Prod, Twitter Lotus Moon Prod, Facebook under Lotus Moon Productions. You think, being the same, it would be easier, but no. Lotus and Productions on Instagram, and you can search us on YouTube under Lotus Moon Productions. So with all that, man, it's been great having you on the podcast again. We'll have to get you back on next time. Maybe Wrestle Kingdom.
Maybe even Best of the Super Juniors to kind of have a preview for Wrestle Kingdom, because we might know a little more mid to late November, early December.
Maybe. I might not get around to watching the Super Juniors, but I'd love to hear all about it, though. So, yeah, maybe November, December, we'll have you back on.
Sounds good to me.
All right. Well, this has been LMP Wrestling. Thank you for listening, and we are signing off.